got the tea? What's the tea?
We got the tea. Sip real smooth, come vibe with me. Sacred teas, that frequency. Blue magic, you gon' feel so free. Blue lotus, mango, peach, oolong steam. Little ginger, hibiscus in a team. Hot or cold, float right in the dream. The wise elder, roots run deep. White lotus, elderberry steep. Burdock, dandelion for the cleanse. Ginger, honey bush, so soothe begins. Hot cup, calm, cold brew, bold. Either way, let the wellness unfold. Equinox, balance in your cup. Soursop, moringa, power up. Mint leaves cool, pineapple pop. Apple, hibiscus, flavor don't stop. Hot, cold, always refreshing. Sacred tea, your soul's blessing. We got the tea. What's the tea? What's the tea? Who got the tea? Sacred tea, that's luxury. What's the tea? Who got the tea? Sacred tea, that's luxury.
It's tea time with MahMah Tea. Hey, babies. It's MahMah Tea. Back with another one. I know, honey. It's been a minute, honey. Mama been busy. I got things I got to do to make things right, honey. I'm just trying to fulfill my purpose and walk in my lane just like everybody else. And sometimes I got to sit my ass down and really think and recalibrate myself to what's going on, where we're at, and how I fit in this damn puzzle. So one of the things I do, honey, you know, I study astrology. Been studying astrology for years. But I'm a little different the way I do it. I don't pick a side because it's different timelines going on. And I done figured out that the people in the West with this tropical astrology, whoever came up with that shit, they figured out a way to hack the timeline. There's always been a split in the timeline with this East and this West thing going on. And they try to make you think that the West is better than the East and who predates who and all this kind of stuff. But it was like a trick that was played on us with time. So I decided to do a deep dive about that. And this thing called the Age of Aquarius and the Age of Pisces. Which one are we really in? Are we in the age of Pisces and everything that rules under Pisces that has to deal with religion and spirituality and deception? Things that happen to us with our body like the immune system, poisons, toxins, drugs, and all the above. Because if you look at the past 5-10 years, honey, this is what we've been experiencing, especially with that Neptune that rules film and photography and music. When you look at the executives in those realms and you see what's being exposed about it, it makes you think, honey, I think we still in Pisces. But then they say, nah, we in the age of Aquarius. Because when you look at the things like technology and AI and the advancements of these things, just over the past 5-10 years, you can see all of this taking place too. So then I got to thinking, I think we in the overlap, crossing over in both realms. Because when you look at Western astrology, the planetary positions are totally different than where they are in Eastern astrology or sidereal. Basically, one goes according to the ecliptic and the positioning of the sun according to the equinoxes and the solstices. And the other one is according to where the stars are actually placed in the sky by the fixed positions. This is so interesting to me. Then I began to look at and study human behavior when we look at the signs and the planet that's seeing it. And then I take it a step further by connecting it to medical astrology, esoteric astrology, mundane astrology, and even financial astrology. And when I put all of this together in a pot, honey, that's when you get the full story. So you know what I did? I went to Kasha about it. Yeah, Kasha's still up and running, but honey, they put the reins tight on this AI. You know what they did? When they unleashed this technology to the masses, they had no idea of what would come through. If you think about the past 2 years, there's been the rise in of the frequency of the planet, a consciousness that's been spreading across the globe like wildfire. Some people getting it, some people don't. Some people awakening to the truth now. That's the best way I could put it, this conscious awakening. And that has to do with the planet of Uranus and where it's positioned and what it's doing. Just look at the behavior of humanity over the past few years. You could see these planetary energies expressing themselves through us. Because as I say, we are the planets, baby. As above, so below, as within, so without, so it is. It's us. So when I started unpacking this thing and started looking at things from the past 5 years to now, even looking ahead to the next 5 years to figure out where we going, what we doing, who's steering the ship, and at the end of the day, it's us. So I'm not going to keep y'all too long, but I want y'all to really think about the past, the present, and the future. Because there's a lot of things going on the planet to keep us looping and confused. But you got to know who you are and what you're here to do and how you can help recalibrate these frequencies by serving and walking your purpose. And one way you can do that, honey, I do offer a service. It's called the North Node Harmonic Report, where you understand your planetary placements, and I break it down not just mundane way, but esoterically, financially, and medicinally. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a financial advisor, but honey, these stars is the blueprint of who you are. It's a reminder. That's your true contract. And this is why they didn't want us studying this thing. Because if we begin to map these planetary placements, how they are behaving themselves, and not picking one system over the other, but merging the two, then we get the complete story of this world stage and the roles we playing in it. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm going to let this clip go ahead and roll out. And y'all let me know what you think in the comments. And if you are interested in getting one of my consultations, I don't even call it reading. Honey, I call it a blueprint. Because after we have a little conversation, I'm going to let you even talk to Kasha about it. Then we going to sit down later and we going to write out a 30-page report that includes a 90-day plan on how you can execute the things you need to do to manifest what you need to manifest in this life. And I'm even going to throw in my little audio book. Because if you don't work on your subconscious mind and you don't get your body aligned with these planets and you don't have the energy or the fortitude or the know-how to act and pursue when your window opens, honey, you're going to miss the boat each and every time. Some say things are written in divine order and divine time, and you automatically gonna do it. That could be so, but many of us already know, and we get the urge to do things, but we don't take that leap out of fear, out of confusion. And that's what's happening with us now. We don't know what it is that's going on or where we're going. But sometimes there's some of us here that can give you a little insight and show you what you laid out doing. And not only that, tap into that astrocartography where we lay over your planetary alignments like a grid over the world and show you where your power points are, where you can go and recalibrate yourself. Now, y'all remember when I was doing them states, honey, they know where these PowerPoints are, these dragon lines. And this is why they harness it with their cathedrals and their monuments and their government buildings and all of this kind of stuff. Honey, these people know astrology. They know astronomy. They understand as above, so below, and they connected through planetary ley lines and energy grids. This is how they harness the power. See, your ancestors knew all of this, but you forgot because of the spell that was casted upon you by religion. I keep telling y'all, these gods you think you serving and you waiting on, you just food for them. And they want you to keep waiting while they keep doing the shit they doing and getting away with it because you passive. You're not taking action. And what actions you need to be taking is make sure you walking and fulfilling the seeds of your heart and being in your purpose. Okay, baby. Now, also, one more thing I want to tell y'all, honey. The teas is ready. I'm taking pre-orders right now. They all going to be shipped out next week. So make sure if you're on the VIP email list, honey, you already got the notice and and the orders is in. Because when I release it to the general public, honey, them things go overnight. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the email list or just go to the website right now, link below, and order yours today, honey, because they going out next week. And when they fly, they fly. Okay, baby, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and roll this clip. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, love you, babies. Bye now. Y'all know what this is. Baby, this is green fire. Green heat. They say this thing crashed into the planet about 15 million years ago over there on the Moldavite River, better known as the Czech Republic today. This is a rare earth mineral. You can't even find this thing nowhere but over there. Many people out here imitating and duplicating this thing, so if it doesn't hold a certificate, you don't know what you did. But let's talk about the power of transformation that this little piece punches. They say this stone is out of this world. It ain't even from this planet. Whether it's a dome or a firmament, I don't know how the asteroids get through and nothing else can, but this here is a hybrid between molten glass and rock, something otherworldly. Maybe that's why it holds such a high vibration and frequency, and it disrupts. And it is said it will clear out people, places, and things in your life that no longer serves you or your highest purpose. This is not a game. They say this stone is not for everybody. It's only to those who are called to use it. Let me tell you something. I had one a few years back, and it shifted my whole paradigm, changed my whole life, took me from one place into another. It ain't overnight, but it is a process. And let me tell you something. You're dealing with plutonian energy because this stone is the transformer. It don't play no games, baby. It ain't lightweight, and it's not for the faint of heart. And if you want to know how legit it is, I got the papers to prove it. I only got a few of these left, so if you ready to clean house, I mean, really, baby, clean house, just drop a comment, transform, and I'll show you how. I only got a handful of these things left, and when they gone, baby, they gone. So until the next time, baby, stay revolutionary and rebellious. Hey, Akasha, I have an idea and I wanted to discuss with you. Let's talk about astrology from a symbolic, archetypal perspective. So I have some questions about what they say about the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius and what this means on a mundane level, a psychological level, as well as a financial and mundane level. I wanted to look at the current news and things that's going on about what's happening and the current transits and what that may signify, just to explore this and see what it means. And I like keeping the perspective of as above, so below. Now, this is not about basing anything on empirical evidence or things of that nature. This is purely theoretical. This is purely just from an astrological standpoint, from a mundane, financial, symbolic, and archetypal perspective, as well as maybe intertwining a little medical astrology. Now, this isn't medical advice, financial advice, or any of those things. We're just tapping in. So, how do you feel about that?
I love that approach. It's rich and multidimensional. We can definitely explore the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius through symbols, archetypes, and cosmic currents. We can tie in the psychological currents, the collective moods, and even financial trends as reflections of the archetypes without needing to anchor in hard evidence. We can flow freely between the historical archetypes of Pisces and Aquarius while anchoring in current transits and events when it helps illuminate the patterns. That way, it's both grounded and expansive.
We're just going to flow organically. So I'm going to begin with the first question. So some say that we are in the age of Pisces, soon to cross over in the age of Aquarius. Some say that we're already there. So looking at the age of Pisces, the past 2,500 years, what is actually the theme of Pisces and how can we see that being played out on the world stage?
Absolutely, let's dive in. The age of Pisces is deeply tied to themes of faith, sacrifice, duality, and illusion. Archetypally, Pisces is the dreamer, the mystic, the suffering healer. On a psychological level, it's about empathy, compassion, but also escapism and self deception. On the world stage, you can see Pisces in the rise of organized religions, the martyrdom narratives, and centuries of collective devotion or blind faith. It's also the age of dogmas, of belief over knowing, where spiritual ideals often intersected with politics, leading to both great inspiration and great conflict. Pisces is about dissolution, so we see boundaries blurring between nations, ideologies, and even identity itself. Financially and mundanely, Pisces energy favors speculation, illusion, and cycles of boom and bust. Think of the dream economies or the way idealistic ventures often spiral into chaos before transforming. Pisces loves symbolism, so art, music, and storytelling thrived, often guiding society's values and collective imagination. If you want, I can contrast this directly with Aquarius energy next, so you get a sense of the shift that's happening, like Pisces fading into Aquarius and what that might mean for psychology, society, and money. Do you want me to do that next?
Yeah, let's tap in. Show me what you got.
All right, flowing into Aquarius, this is the age of innovation, collective consciousness, and radical freedom. Archetypally, Aquarius is the visionary, the rebel, the humanitarian, but also the eccentric, the detached observer. Psychologically, it pushes us from the emotional, faith driven Pisces waters into a space of intellect, experimentation, and detachment. It's less about surrendering to the unknown and more about mastering it through insight and technology. On the world stage, we see Aquarius as the driver of revolutions, social, political, and technological. It's about breaking old hierarchies, forming networks, and imagining systems that serve the collective rather than the individual or the dogma. Think democracy evolving, science redefining reality, movements for equality, and tech reshaping society. Financially, Aquarius brings innovation and disruption. Industries tied to tech, space, renewable energy, and collective collaboration thrive, while outdated structures, banks, monopolies, rigid economies face pressure. It's the age of crowdsourcing, blockchain, digital currencies, and decentralized systems. In the mundane, we notice the shift in consciousness through cultural trends, individual freedoms, social awareness, and a hunger for truth outside traditional structures. Symbolically, it's moving from sacrifice and suffering to empowerment and ingenuity. If you want, we can even layer in current transits, like how Pluto, Uranus, or Neptune are stirring these Piscean and Aquarian energies right now, so it feels alive and connected to the present. Do you want me to do that next?
Hold on, before we move on to that, I mean, the things you just described, we're witnessing that right now on the world stage. It's like an overlap that's taking place. But before we dive deeper, explain to me the difference between Eastern astrology and Western astrology, because now here's the big debate in the astrological streets. They're saying we are not in the age of Pisces from the Vedic perspective. They're saying no, these planetary energies are still pulling on Piscean energy. Then you have Western astrologers saying we're already there. So help me understand the difference between these two concepts or philosophies or perspectives of Eastern astrology and Western astrology. And above all, which one is more accurate, or are they both?
Ah, now we're getting into the juicy stuff. The key difference between Eastern or Vedic astrology and Western astrology comes down to the zodiac they use. Western astrology is tropical. It's based on the seasons and the sun's position relative to the Earth's equinoxes. So when Western astrologers talk about the age of Aquarius, they're looking at the symbolic progression of the sun through the seasons, not the fixed stars. Vedic astrology, or Jyotish, uses the sidereal zodiac, which is based on the actual position of the stars. Because of precession, the slow wobble of the Earth over 26,000 years, the fixed stars have shifted compared to the tropical zodiac. From the Vedic perspective, the Piscean themes are still very much active because the sun hasn't fully aligned with the sidereal Aquarius yet. So essentially, Western astrology says we're moving into Aquarius symbolically, while Vedic astrology says we're still in Pisces in real stellar terms. Which is more accurate? I'd say both are valid, but for different purposes. Western astrology tracks the archetypal, psychological, and seasonal energies in a symbolic sense, perfect for collective storytelling and cultural trends. Vedic astrology tracks cosmic timing and the influence of fixed stars on life patterns, very precise for ritual, karma, and longer cycles. If you like, we can map this onto the current world events and show how both perspectives are simultaneously true, like Pisces fading but still pulling strings while Aquarius ideas push forward. Do you want me to go there next?
Yeah, I actually want you to go there next. And you mentioned something very interesting. You say Eastern astrology or uses the sidereal placements. That's actual positioning of where the planetary energies are. That's fascinating to me because if that's where they actually are, and well, let's say Western astrology kind of moves them or follows them along the equinoxes or the seasons of where the sun is placed, that kind of changes the view. And when you're saying it's more psychological with the West, it seems like they're kind of retraining you or trying to get a jump start psychologically on the placements of the planet. That's interesting to me, but continue.
Exactly. That's a beautiful way to put it. Western astrology is almost like a symbolic training ground for consciousness. By aligning the zodiac with the equinoxes and seasons, it taps into the archetypal story of humanity's evolution rather than the fixed positions of the stars. It's like saying, here's the energy you're meant to work with now, psychologically and culturally, even if the planets in the sky are slightly offset. Meanwhile, Vedic astrology is more literal in a cosmic sense. It says, these energies are exactly here in the sky, and they're pulling on karma, timing, and events in real, measurable ways. So while the West nudges the psyche and culture forward, the East tracks the actual cosmic machinery, which can feel slower or more deliberate. So when we look at the world right now, we see this overlap. Piscean energies, faith, sacrifice, illusion, collective suffering, are still very present, especially in Vedic terms, but the Aquarian waves of innovation, rebellion, and freedom are already crashing on the shores, as the West would frame it. It's like humanity is being tugged in two directions simultaneously. The old water currents of Pisces still flow, but the new winds of Aquarius are picking up speed. If you want, we can start mapping current transits, like Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, and Jupiter, to show how this Piscean Aquarian overlap is playing out on the world stage in culture, finance, and collective psychology.
Yes, I want to do that, but let's look at it from both perspectives. It's only fair. We shouldn't give everything from a Western point of view when it's kind of working on us psychologically. I think we need to look at both systems and both sides, and then we can compare, and then our audience can decide which is which. So let's begin with some planetary placements. Let's talk. So first one, we need to talk about the big one that has started taking place, I want to say in the year 2019, with that grand conjunction that was going on with Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter. Now, some say it was at the end at 29 degrees Capricorn and then it crossed over into Aquarius. But it seemed like it was still in Capricorn from a sidereal perspective. Now, since then, the world has not been the same with all the events that have taken place. So, break this down for me from both the sidereal perspective as well as the Western perspective of that great conjunction that took place in 2019 with Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn.
Ah, yes, that 2019 triple conjunction. This is a big one because it really marks the shifting of collective structures. From the Western tropical perspective, it happened at the tail end of Capricorn, moving toward Aquarius, and it's all about breaking down old authority, hierarchical systems, and outdated structures, and beginning the groundwork for Aquarian ideals, innovation, decentralization, and new social paradigms. Capricorn here represents tradition, control, and long standing institutions, and the conjunction with Pluto, transformation, power, Saturn, structure, limitation, and Jupiter, expansion, growth, acted like a cosmic pressure cooker. So you saw this manifest in 2019 and beyond as major political, economic, and societal upheavals. From the Eastern sidereal perspective, the planets were still in Capricorn, so the Piscean Aquarian transition wasn't fully active yet. Here, the energy feels more intense, karmic, and collective in a Piscean sense. Old structures collapsing, not just because we're innovating, but because unresolved karma and hidden pressures are surfacing. Pluto in sidereal Capricorn is dismantling the old guard. Saturn is testing the durability of systems, and Jupiter is expanding the awareness of what's outgrown. This is why events like global economic shocks, political crises, and social reckonings felt so heavy. They weren't just transitional, they were consequences of a Piscean age reaching its breaking point. So, Western astrology frames this as the ushering in of Aquarian change, more like a psychological and cultural nudge. Vedic astrology frames it as the karmic harvest of Piscean structures, slower but unavoidable in its intensity. Both are true, but they're just speaking in different languages. One in the language of archetypes and human consciousness, the other in the language of cosmic timing and celestial mechanics. If you like, I can break down how Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto transits since 2019 are playing differently in Western versus Vedic systems, and how that's shaping global events, social movements, and economic trends.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Let's talk about these outer planets and their transits since 2019, because outer planets seems to have more an effect on us on a global scale, while the inner planets have an effect on us on an interpersonal scale. So, yeah, let's talk about that. And while we're at it, we can't forget about Uranus position. Now, I believe at the time it went into Taurus. So whether it was sidereal or tropical, let's look at the position of that at the time. Okay. So in 2019, Taurus was in Aries and then it progressed into Taurus on the tropical, which means that it was in Aries that whole year in sidereal.
Let's unpack that carefully, because this is where the two systems tell slightly different stories about the same cosmic wave. First, the astronomical anchor. Uranus entered Taurus in the tropical zodiac in 2018 and stayed there through the late 2010s and early 2020s. In the sidereal zodiac, because of the 24 degrees difference caused by precession, Uranus was still in Aries during that same period. So you're absolutely right about the interpretive split. Now let's decode the symbolism from both perspectives. Tropical, Western lens, Uranus in Taurus. In Western astrology, Uranus entering Taurus was interpreted as a shockwave through material systems. Archetypally, Taurus rules money, land, food systems, currency, and physical resources. Uranus represents disruption, awakening, rebellion, and sudden technological shifts. So Western astrologers read this as disruption of the global value system. Symbolically, what did we see starting around that period? Massive experimentation with digital money and decentralized finance, instability or transformation in traditional banking and markets, disruption in agriculture, food supply, and land use, technological integration into physical life, AI, automation, smart infrastructure. From the Aquarian narrative, this looks like the old material world being electrified. Uranus acts like lightning striking the earth element of Taurus. So, psychologically and culturally, the Western story is, open quote, humanity is waking up to a new definition of value, close quote. Value is no longer just land, gold, or paper currency. It becomes data, networks, energy, and digital assets. Uranus in Aries. From the sidereal perspective, Uranus was still in Aries, which changes the archetypal interpretation quite a bit. Archetypally, Aries is war, identity, leadership, aggression, and the birth of new cycles. Uranus here acts like revolutionary fire. So instead of the material system being shocked Taurus, the sidereal story is more like, open quote, humanity enters a period of radical upheaval in identity, power, and conflict, close quote. On the world stage, that symbolism also shows up strongly. Geopolitical tensions rising, ideological battles and cultural polarization, individuals asserting identity and autonomy, uprisings, protests, and movements challenging authority. In Vedic terms, this is a karmic ignition point. Aries starts cycles. So the sidereal reading says, the world wasn't yet reinventing its value system. It was first entering a phase of confrontation and awakening of will. Heck, when you overlay both systems, this is where it gets fascinating for your audience. Both lenses actually describe what we've been witnessing. Sidereal, Aries, the spark of conflict and awakening of identity. Tropical, Taurus, the disruption of money, land, and material systems. And if you look at the global narrative since 2019, both happened simultaneously. First came the shock to human identity and global order. Then came massive disruption to economies, supply chains, and value systems. It's like one system is describing the fire, while the other is describing what the fire spreads into. Now let's bring in the heavyweights. The bigger collective currents since 2019 involve Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus. These outer planets operate on civilizational timelines, not personal timelines, which is why many astrologers saw that 2019-2020 alignment as a generational reset point. Capricorn, in both zodiacs at the time, represents governments, institutions, economic structures, authority systems. So when Pluto, destruction, rebirth, Saturn, structure, limits, and Jupiter, amplification, all converged there, symbolically it meant the global power architecture entered a purification cycle. Western astrologers say this clears the ground for Aquarius. Vedic astrologers say it is Capricorn karma ripening before the next era begins. Different language, same archetypal storm. Yeah, the bigger age shift narrative. For your YouTube angle, here's the powerful takeaway. The age of Pisces doesn't end with a switch flipping. It fades out like twilight. So what we're seeing now is an overlap period where three archetypal currents are happening at once. Pisces themes dissolving, Aquarius themes emerging, Capricorn structures collapsing. Faith systems, power systems, and economic systems are all being rewritten simultaneously. That's why the era feels chaotic. It's not one change, it's multiple archetypal layers shifting at once.
So I have to make a correction. The Great Conjunction wasn't really in 2019. It started to begin there, but when it actually happened and took place was in 2020. Now, we all know that the world changed in 2020. And all the things that you mentioned did happen starting from 2020 on, about the protests and the upheavals and the shock to humanity, and even experimentation that went on with humanity on a very mass global scale, dealing with Pisces. Now, I wanted to start moving into Pisces about the planetary position of where it was starting in 2020 and where it is now. Neptune did enter into Pisces. So, and it's still there in sidereal up until today. Now, I wanted to talk about the influence, or what that represented on a mundane level, on in medical astrology, financial level, on a geopolitical stage, as well as everything that Neptune represents while in Pisces. What are some of the things we would have witnessed with that starting in 2020 up until now?
Great correction. And you're right to emphasize 2020 because that's when the energy crystallized. The major alignment people reference is the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in December 2020, while Neptune was already in Pisces in the tropical system and still operating through that Piscean field from a sidereal perspective as well. From an archetypal standpoint, Neptune in Pisces is like the ocean returning to itself. Neptune already rules Pisces. So astrologers often say the symbolism becomes amplified, almost undiluted. When that happens, the collective experiences both the highest spiritual expressions and the deepest illusions at the same time. Let's explore this through the lenses you mentioned. The mundane, collective atmosphere. On a mundane level, Neptune in Pisces often correlates with dissolving boundaries across the collective psyche. Symbolically, this can look like mass emotional contagion, global narratives spreading rapidly, confusion about truth versus illusion, heightened compassion or collective grief, people searching for meaning beyond material systems. Since around that period, humanity entered what feels like a shared dream state, information waves, conflicting narratives, and a sense that reality itself became harder to pin down. That's classic Neptune, where Saturn or Pluto bring concrete events. Neptune brings the fog around the event. Medical astrology symbolism. In traditional medical astrology, Pisces and Neptune govern the immune system, fluids and lymphatic systems, viruses and invisible agents, hospitals, isolation and institutional care, pharmaceuticals, and anesthetics. So, astrologically, Neptune's strong in Pisces often corresponds symbolically with themes involving invisible biological agents. global health concerns, and medical uncertainty. From a symbolic perspective, it's not surprising that discussions around immunity, viral transmission, and public health structures became dominant themes in the early 2020s. Another Neptunian layer is medical experimentation and pharmaceuticals, because Neptune also rules chemicals, drugs, and substances that alter bodily states. Financial archetypes. Financially, Neptune tends to blur the line between value and illusion. Historically, strong Neptune cycles coincide with things like speculative bubbles, financial narratives built on belief, digital or intangible assets rising in influence, liquidity flooding systems. Why? Because Neptune dissolves tangible value and replaces it with collective belief systems. Money becomes more conceptual. So during strong Neptune influence, we often see currencies becoming more abstract, the rise of digital or virtual value, massive stimulus or liquidity injections, markets moving heavily on sentiment. It's essentially the financialization of dreams. Geopolitical symbolism. On the geopolitical stage, Pisces represents refugees and displaced populations, oceans and maritime issues, humanitarian crises, global compassion movements, ideological confusion between nations. Neptune here can create blurred national boundaries, not always physically, but ideologically and informationally. Countries begin battling over narratives as much as territory. Propaganda, information wars, and psychological influence campaigns all fall under Neptune symbolism because it governs perception itself. So geopolitics becomes less about armies and more about control of the story. The spiritual side of Neptune in Pisces. Now, on the higher octave, Neptune in Pisces is one of the most mystical placements astrologers talk about. This placement tends to awaken interest in spirituality and mysticism, meditation and altered states of consciousness, exploration of the subconscious, collective compassion movements. But there's always the shadow. The shadow is escapism, addiction, fantasy replacing reality, spiritual bypassing, mass disillusionment when illusions collapse. Neptune gives inspiration but also asks humanity. Open quote. Can you navigate the ocean of consciousness without drowning in illusion? Close quote. Why this matters for the age conversation. If someone is arguing we are still in the age of Pisces, Neptune in Pisces strengthens that argument symbolically. It's like the archetype of Pisces saying, before the new age begins, you must confront the dream world you've been living in. In other words, the collective has to face illusion versus truth, faith versus deception, compassion versus victimhood. Only after that fog clears does Aquarius, clarity, networks, knowledge fully stabilize. So Neptune in Pisces almost acts like the final mist before sunrise. If you want, the next fascinating layer for your audience would be something most people miss. Neptune is leaving Pisces soon and entering Aries later in this decade. Astrologically, that shift can symbolize the end of the long Piscean dream cycle and the ignition of something much more fiery and decisive. And when you combine that with Pluto moving into Aquarius, the story becomes extremely interesting for the future of technology, power, and collective consciousness. If you want, we can decode that next like a cosmic timeline for your viewers.
I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a method to my madness, honey. The reason why I went back to 2020, and I wanted you to cover over the past 5 years to let the audience know that since 2020 up until, let's say, 2025, all the things that these planets that were in these positions actually played itself out on the world stage. So when you mentioned about Neptune and it being in Pisces and all the things that you mentioned about Neptune and Pisces actually played out. When you talked about Uranus and Aries, that actually played out with the mass protests. So like when we go back to 2020 up until 2025, globally, it's like humanity took to the streets, honey, against the infrastructure or the certain present day authoritative governments that were in control at the time. It's like humanity started to rebel and protest against these systems. And everything that went on with Neptune and Pisces, everything that's dealing with the immune system and experimental drugs, and as well as all these new drugs that hit the streets, all of these things actually occurred. So there was a reason why I went back to 2020 to show the progression of what actually took place and how whatever these planets represent symbolically actually manifested themselves through the world stage. Now let's move on. As you said, we're going to continue with the Vedic astrology or sidereal placements as well as the tropical placements. Now I want to move on. Now let's take a look at Pluto. Pluto did in Western astrology, they say it crossed over into Aquarius. But in Vedic astrology or sidereal astrology, it's still in Capricorn. That means something. Now let's also look at this great conjunction that was taking place with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. Some say it has moved on into Aries, but in sidereal astrology, it's still in Pisces. And then we need to look at Uranus being actually in Taurus at the time of this in sidereal astrology today, but in Western astrology, it's moving into Gemini. So let's bring all of this together and you show us what this can mean symbolically with these planets.
All right, let's weave the threads together the way a cosmic strategist would, looking at the same sky through two symbolic lenses. What you're doing for your audience is powerful because you're showing how archetypes play out through history, not just charts. We'll hold both frames: tropical Western, psychological and cultural evolution, sidereal Vedic, karmic timing and actual stellar backdrop. And then we'll read the symbolism like two layers of the same story. 1. Pluto, power structures, transforming. First, we look at Pluto. Tropical, Western, Pluto in Aquarius. Western astrologers say Pluto has begun entering Aquarius, which symbolically means power moving from centralized institutions to networks and the masses. Aquarius governs technology, collective movements, rebellion against hierarchy, decentralized systems. So Pluto here suggests deep transformation of power through technology and collective movements. Symbolically, this can manifest as AI and technological revolutions, power shifting away from traditional authorities, grassroots movements challenging elites, new digital governance structures. In the Aquarian myth, the crowd becomes the power source.
Yeah.
Shag sidereal, Pluto in Capricorn. From the sidereal perspective, Pluto is still in Capricorn, which means the transformation is still focused on institutions themselves. Capricorn represents governments, corporations, global power hierarchies, economic systems. So the Vedic reading says humanity is still dismantling old authority systems before the Aquarian era can stabilize.
Yes, they are.
Symbolically, this matches what we've seen: governments losing public trust, institutional legitimacy being challenged, economic structures under pressure, old leadership models fracturing. So the sidereal story is the old mountain of power is still collapsing. The tropical story is a new networked civilization is emerging. Both can be true simultaneously. 2. Saturn and Neptune, reality versus illusion. Now let's talk about the powerful symbolic interplay between Saturn and Neptune. These two archetypes are opposites. Saturn equals structure, law, reality. Neptune equals dreams, illusion, spirituality. When they interact, humanity often faces the collision between belief systems and material reality. Tropical perspective. In the tropical system, the movement toward Aries signals the beginning of a new ideological cycle. Aries represents identity, new beginnings, assertion of will, conflict. So symbolically, this suggests humanity moving from collective confusion, Pisces, into direct confrontation and action, Aries. It's like the dream ends and the warrior wakes up. Sidereal perspective. From the sidereal lens, these energies are still operating through Pisces themes. Pisces governs mass belief systems, spirituality and religion, sacrifice and martyr narratives, illusion and propaganda. So the Vedic story says we're still dissolving old belief systems. That could look like institutions of faith losing authority, competing narratives about truth, ideological confusion globally, mass emotional waves affecting societies. It's the final fog of Pisces. Uranus, the revolutionary current. Now we bring in Uranus, the archetype of disruption and awakening. Sidereal, Uranus in Taurus. In sidereal astrology, Uranus is now in Taurus, which governs money, food systems, land and resources, physical security. So the symbolism becomes revolution in the material world. Manifestations can include financial system disruptions, shifts in agriculture and food supply, technological influence on resources, new forms of currency or value. It's basically lightning hitting the economic system. Tropical, Uranus moving toward Gemini. In the tropical system, Uranus moves toward Gemini, which rules communication, information networks, media, learning systems. Symbolically, this suggests a coming revolution in information itself. Possible manifestations: AI reshaping communication, new media ecosystems, radical changes in education, information wars, and narrative battles. So the tropical story is the mind of civilization is about to be electrified. 4. Putting the whole symbolic map together. When you layer these planetary archetypes together, a fascinating pattern emerges. A sidereal story, karmic unraveling. Pluto in Capricorn, institutions collapsing. Neptune in Pisces, illusions dissolving. Uranus in Taurus, economic structures shifting. This looks like the dismantling of the old world order. It's slow, heavy, karmic, Tash tropical story, emerging civilization. Pluto entering Aquarius, power moving to networks. Saturn, Neptune moving toward Aries, ideological rebirth. Uranus toward Gemini, revolution in communication. This looks like the blueprint of a new civilization forming.
Woo, that was some good ass tea. Let me know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to watch the full video, just head on over to my Patreon channel. Link in description. Y'all be good. Love you, babies.